They always said love is supposed to be safe, that your partner should be the one who shields you from storms, not be the storm itself. But what if the one you trusted with your heart is quietly setting fire to the walls of your soul? What if the person lying beside you every night is hiding a secret so devastating it could break everything inside you? Today's story isn't just a message. It's a warning from God, wrapped in the whispers of intuition you've been ignoring for too long. Close the door, silence the noise, and listen. This will make you cry hard, because your partner isn't who you think they are. It began with silence, not the peaceful kind, but the sort that wraps around you like a cold fog, pressing it against your chest until breathing feels like work. Ion had always believed that love was supposed to feel warm, but lately, something had shifted in his wife Zara. Her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. Her voice was soft, but not sweet, distant, almost like it belonged to someone else. They had been married for 3 years. 3 years of shared secrets, long nights, broken dreams, and stitched-up hopes. At least, that's what Ion thought, until the signs began to flicker into his world like dying light bulbs. It started subtly. Her phone, once casually left on the coffee table, was now glued to her side like a second skin. Late-night showers, sudden errands, and the worst part? That gut feeling. You know, the one God plants deep inside your spirit when something is wrong, but you can't quite explain it. Ion tried to shake it off. He told himself it was work stress, that maybe she just needed space. But deep down, a voice whispered, "Watch, observe, don't ignore this." Then came the dreams. Each night, Ion would wake up drenched in sweat, the taste of betrayal lingering on his tongue like poison. In the dreams, Zara stood across the room, whispering to someone in the shadows. He'd call out to her, but her back was always turned. When she finally turned around, her eyes were empty, hollow, unrecognizable. These dreams weren't just dreams. They were warnings. But love makes fools out of wise. And Ion, despite the chills crawling up his spine, clung to hope like a man sinking in quicksand. One evening, he decided to surprise her with her favorite dessert, gulab jamun from that old shop near the railway station. The plan was simple: make her smile, remind her of their old days, and maybe bring her back. But God had different plans. When he reached home earlier than expected, the door was unlocked. Strange. Zara never left it unlocked. His footsteps were light, careful, almost as if his heart already knew it was walking towards something it couldn't unsee. The voices hit him first. Not loud, but intimate, whispery. Close. He froze in the hallway, heart thundering, ears straining. Zara's laugh, that delicate, soft giggle she used to reserve only for him, now shared with someone else. The living room was dim, but not enough to hide shadows. There was a man, partially hidden by the curtain, his back to Ion. Zara stood in front of him, arms loosely crossed, too close, too familiar. Ion didn't storm in. He didn't scream. He just watched. His soul felt like it was crumbling silently, piece by jagged piece. The pain wasn't loud. It was quiet, precise, the kind that cuts deep without ever bleeding. She didn't notice him until the other man left. When their eyes finally met, hers widened, not in guilt but in fear, as if he'd caught a ghost she tried to bury. "Ion," she whispered, voice shaking. But he didn't reply. He just nodded, slowly, as though finally accepting what God had been trying to tell him all along. The next few days were a blur. Silence, avoidance, half-hearted explanations. She insisted it was emotional, not physical, that she felt unseen, unheard, unloved, that the man was just a friend who listened. But Ion knew lies when he heard them. Still, he didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just observed. Because sometimes God doesn't send storms to destroy you. He sends them to reveal who's standing beside you when the rain starts to fall. And Zara? She had chosen to carry an umbrella for someone else. One night, unable to sleep, Ion found himself standing at their balcony, staring into the dark sky. Stars blinked above, indifferent, but the wind carried something with it. A feeling, a nudge, a message. He whispered to the air, "God, If this isn't love anymore, give me a sign. Show me what to do. The sign came the next morning. Zara had left her phone unattended for the first time in months. It buzzed twice. A message preview appeared, a name he didn't recognize. And the words? Last night was perfect. I hate sneaking around, but it's worth it for you. His heart didn't break this time. No, it shattered cleanly, like glass dropped from a skyscraper. There it was, the truth, undeniable, unforgiving, unbearable, but also freeing. For the first time, Ayan realized something. The real betrayal wasn't just the affair. It was the erosion of truth, the quiet killing of intimacy, the death of respect. And he had been mourning a version of her that no longer existed. That day, he packed a bag. Just essentials. He left her a note. Not a confrontation. Not a dramatic goodbye. Just a simple message. I loved you more than you ever knew. But I refuse to stay where love is buried in lies. May God guide you. May He heal me. He didn't wait for a response. He walked out. And with each step, he felt the weight lift. Not because it didn't hurt, but because for the first time he chose himself. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't against others. They're against a version of you who settles for less than you deserve. The version who begs for love in places it no longer lives. Ayan didn't find peace immediately. He wept. Nights were long. Memories attacked like ghosts in the dark. But each day, he remembered that God doesn't expose truth to break you, but to build you anew. And somewhere, deep in the pain, a new version of Ayan was awakening. One not defined by betrayal. One not shaped by someone else's lies. But one reborn through truth. Because sometimes the partner trying to break you becomes the reason God helps you rise. But this story isn't over yet. What happened to Zara? Did she regret her choices? And did Ayan ever find someone who knew how to love him without secrets? When the storm passes and the truth is laid bare, healing doesn't come with silence. It comes with facing the ghosts still left behind. Ayan thought walking away was the end of the chapter. But sometimes the echoes of betrayal don't fade quietly. Because even when you leave the fire behind, the burn still lingers. And what happens when the person who broke you suddenly wants you back? This is the second and final part of Ayan's journey. A tale of pain, self-respect, and divine protection. Stay with it, because the end might just be the beginning of something far greater. 2 months had passed. Ayan had moved into a modest apartment not far from the city's outskirts. The walls were bare, the mattress still on the floor, but there was peace here. Real peace. Not the kind that masks itself in routine, but the kind that comes from choosing your own voice after years of being silenced by someone else's comfort. He'd started writing again, a forgotten passion. Late nights turned into pages. Pain turned into paragraphs. He didn't need to explain anything to anyone. His story now belonged to him and him alone. But healing is never a straight line. There were still moments when the memories would creep in, Zara's laughter echoing in his head. The way she used to trace her fingers along the rim of her teacup. The silly songs she sang when cooking. The way she looked at him when he came home late, pretending to be annoyed but secretly waiting for a hug. That's what made betrayal so cruel. It didn't erase love. It just twisted it. Made you question everything real about it. And just when he thought he was ready to breathe again, Zara called. It was a cold evening. Rain tapped against the window, slow and rhythmic. Ayan stared at the phone for a long time. His thumb hovered over the answer button, unsure whether his heart was prepared for her voice again. But he answered. She said nothing for a full 10 seconds. Then, just one word, small and broken. Hi. He didn't say anything. I know I have no right to call you, she continued, but I needed to tell you something. Ayan closed his eyes. Go on. I made the worst mistake of my life. Her voice cracked. I thought I needed something more. But all I did was destroy the only thing that ever made me feel safe. Silence again. I didn't sleep with him, she said quickly. Not that it makes a difference. I broke us with my choices. I hurt you. I see that now. Ayan's heart clenched. Not because he still loved her, but because part of him had waited for this. For her to admit the truth. But another part knew it was too late. Why now? He asked softly. There was a pause. Then she whispered, Because he left me. Ah, there it was. Not redemption, not guilt, abandonment. He said he couldn't be with a woman who betrayed her husband, she continued. He used me and then discarded me. Ayan didn't feel joy, only sadness. Not for her, but for the girl she once was. The one he fell in love with. The one who used to look at the stars with wonder, not secrets. Somewhere along the line, she had let her heart turn cold. I'm not calling to ask you back, she added. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He swallowed hard. Thank you for saying that. It matters. They hung up without promises. No longing. No desperate pleas. Just a final breath between two people who had shared a lifetime in 3 short years. But that night, something changed. Ayan realized that closure doesn't always come in perfect words. Sometimes it comes in the silence that follows. 2 weeks later, Ayan was invited to speak at a local community event. Ironically, about resilience and self-worth. He almost declined, but something inside him urged him to go. The hall was filled with strangers, but he wasn't nervous. He stood tall, calm, a little scarred, but whole. He told his story without naming names. Spoke about love, loss, loyalty, and letting go. And at the end, he said something that would stay with the audience long after the applause faded. God doesn't just reveal who people are to hurt you. He reveals them to protect you. You think it's punishment, but it's mercy. His way of saying, you deserve better, and I'm clearing the space for it. People approached him afterward. Some shared their own wounds. Others just hugged him quietly. One woman lingered at the back, watching him without a word. She had kind eyes, a shy smile, something familiar yet new. When she finally walked up, she extended a hand. I'm Meher, she said. Your words, they felt like they were written for me. They spoke for only 5 minutes that day. But sometimes God introduces the next chapter gently. Days passed, then weeks. Ayan and Meher began meeting at cafes, parks, bookstores. They didn't rush anything. They talked about life, God, mistakes, healing. She, too, had known betrayal, but she hadn't let it make her bitter. And slowly, in the quiet spaces between conversations, Ayan felt his heart thaw, not because he was desperate to love again, but because, for the first time, he felt safe. It wasn't fireworks. It was sunrise, steady, warm, honest. Zara, on the other hand, had vanished from his life completely. Last he heard, she had moved to another city. Her chapter had ended, and he had no hate in his heart. Just a prayer that she, too, would find herself before it was too late. 1 year later, on a quiet evening wrapped in orange dusk, Ayan stood on the same balcony he once stared from with a broken heart. But this time he wasn't alone. Meher stood beside him, her head resting on his shoulder, not as a savior, not as a replacement, but as a reminder that even shattered souls can bloom again. And as they watched the sky darken, Ayan whispered a final prayer. Thank you, God, for showing me the truth, for protecting me when I didn't even know I needed saving, for turning pain into purpose. Because sometimes the partner trying to break you is just God's way of leading you back to yourself. And maybe someone who can love you the way you were always meant to be loved.